I wouldn't be surprised if the guns office puts out stuff that might be more like do they indicate?
Some, because they used to say, well, usually it's like, oh, your AP, come with us. Like the first year I did it, 15, 16 years ago, that's how it happened each year. It just happens. Yeah. And I don't know how.
What's the best way to reach?
Here, send my card.
WFLA Now will begin momentarily.
You did?
WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
The suspect in the Idaho student murders arrives in Pennsylvania court, where his public defender says he'll be waiving extradition to answer to the 4 first-degree murder charges in Idaho. We are live from the Pennsylvania courthouse with the very latest here on WFLA Now. Hello there to you folks. JB alongside WFLA's Josh Benson here on the right side of your screen. Here now live with feeds to show you. In fact, let's go live. We don't want anyone to miss this. This is the one camera shot that we have, the pool feed from inside the courthouse. Again, we are awaiting Bryan Kohberger, the lone suspect in the Idaho student murders. Now, as we understand it, what is going to happen here in a short time from now, this door will open when members of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office deputies will escort Kohberger from the room, the holding area where he's currently being held, into the courtroom for, again, this initial extradition hearing. He is reportedly, through his public defender, going to be waiving extradition, which will pave the way for a speedy process as far as getting him back to Idaho, to answer to the 4 first-degree murder charges. So this is live here on your screen. Also want to let you know as well, with the hearing coming up at 3:30 Eastern Time, Pennsylvania State Police have called a 4:30 press conference, a press conference that we do plan on carrying here on stream. So we're going to try to do this as a 2-for-1, if you will. 3:30, we'll bring you the very latest. We'll have coverage of the extradition hearing. And then at 4:30, we will take you live to Pennsylvania State Police headquarters, where we are expected to hear the very latest from investigators, again, in the apprehension of Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger. So we had the video a short time ago, and it's been, of course, on social media, the video of him arriving at the courthouse earlier today. Since then, it's believed that he has been in this holding area, and ahead of the 3:30 court hearing, he will, of course, be escorted from this room into the courtroom. Now, the courtroom itself, as I bring in WFLA's Josh Benson, the courtroom itself, this was a little bit confusing yesterday, Josh, but the courtroom itself, there's no cameras permitted. That is of course, that is the rule of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, that there are no cameras permitted inside the courtroom, even though they are permitting the camera inside the courthouse, really in the hallway outside the courtroom itself.
Hallway, or is that
this is what we're looking at as far as the hallway. So if they were to zoom all the way out, you would see a long hallway. This is not a very big courthouse, as I understand it. So this is what we're waiting on here as far as Kohberger's arrival. We'll go here live full screen and continue to monitor our comments here on YouTube Live, and we're about to launch on Facebook Live as well.
And I think everybody is talking about this thinking there's going to be something super interesting out of this hearing, but as far as I'm understanding, it's more of a formality.
Yep.
If he waives extradition, then as you said, it's kind of speed up the process. If he didn't and he decided to fight it, that would be a little more suspect and would take a longer amount of time to get the process in order to get him back to Idaho. So I don't think we're going to see much today, and especially as you said, we're not going to have the cameras in the courtroom, so we're really not going to see much at all. But it is interesting. The police department's going to have that news conference, so I'm anxious to hear from them because the video today was the first time we saw him.
I have it ready on the touch screen. We can come back to this shot if we need be. This is the video from News Nation earlier on today. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office, their vehicle arriving, and personnel getting out of their vehicle, opening up the door. And I believe the lone prisoner transport was for Bryan Kohberger. We'll see him here. And I'm keeping an eye, folks, on the hallway shot. If there is anything out of the hallway shot, we will go to it. Here is Kohberger in the red-orange jumpsuit being taken into the courthouse.
And, there was a lot of officers around there. If you look behind the van, I mean, they had probably 10, 12, 15 officers out there for that kind of that walk that he had there. So that was interesting to watch.
So, again, his public defender has met with him reportedly several times and has indicated that he will be waiving his extradition to Idaho, and that the chief public defender for Monroe County also saying that he is looking forward to being exonerated. And, Josh, you and I were talking a little bit about this earlier. While the court of law, this is very much innocent until proven guilty. In the court of public opinion online, the belief out there, if you talk to people online, the belief out there is that this is the person responsible. People, of course, who have been paying very close attention to this story since day one. But again, as a reminder to our audience, court of law, innocent until proven guilty. So we have a suspect in the case, but the suspect, of course, is going to be doing everything that he can to prove his innocence. He has not confessed to the crime. He is reportedly telling his public defender that he is willing to be extradited to the state of Idaho to answer to these charges, and he is not going to be fighting extradition. And so we should find out really in the days ahead as to what the extradition process is going to look like, how quickly is he going to make it back to Idaho, and then, of course, the big thing, getting the arrest affidavit.
Everybody's waiting to see that because that's going to detail out exactly why they think they have the person in this crime. And I think you said it. I think people are very anxious, in these types of cases that get a lot of publicity. And, the media, we cover this story in depth, as you know, as does a lot of the news agencies around the country and around the world. So it gets a ton of attention. And so when you see him and pictures of him, it's easy for a lot of people at home to say, hey, this guy did it. You got to be careful, though, in this case to say this guy has charges all over, but has not been convicted yet. And this is what the process is about. So I think it's so easy to look at someone and want some justice for a case as horrific as this one and want to put a name with a face and say that person did it. But until we have, the charging documents, the affidavit, and obviously the finality to whatever happens in this case. Look, they don't even have a murder weapon yet, correct?
Right.
I don't think they even have the murder weapon, which is a big piece of this puzzle as well. So I think you hit it on the head that people got to really be careful to say this guy isn't guaranteed to be the guy who did it, but he does have 4 first-degree murder charges on his back, so that doesn't look very good either.
Paying attention to your hashtag #HeyJosh, hashtag #HeyJB questions and comments, and as we await for this door opening, we'll go to some of the comments coming in on YouTube Live. If you use a hashtag on your screen, folks, hashtag #HeyJB or hashtag #HeyJosh, we can animate your comments on screen. And Mary says, we were told by Fry that, of course, being the Moscow, Idaho police chief, that they have the guy. And, of course, they are expressing a lot of confidence in Idaho that they have evidence, but we don't know what that evidence looks like just yet. We won't know what the evidence looks like until the arrest affidavit comes out and is made public. And even then, the arrest affidavit, we don't know how much of that information is going to be redacted. You hope that most of the information is available for public view and for for us as reporters to dissect. But as of right now, there isn't any concrete evidence that has been made public. But of course, the investigators behind this case, the Moscow, Idaho Police Department, very confident that they have the person responsible, even though we have Bryan Kohberger, who says that he is looking forward to clearing his name when he answers to the charges in Idaho.
And something new today, the family spoke out that we finally got to hear from them. And Jason Labar is the Monroe County Public Defender representing Bryan at this time. He says in a statement today to NBC, he says, they don't believe it to be Bryan. They can't believe this. They're obviously shocked. This is certainly completely out of character, the allegations, and really they're just trying to be supportive of their son. So they're as shocked as everyone else. And to think of a family, getting that phone call to say, hey, we think your son did this. Can you imagine being in their seat? I mean, it's unbelievable. So they are, as we were told yesterday, they're going to be in the courtroom for this hearing today. That's coming up at 3:30. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see it, but they were going to be in the courtroom, as was, I believe, one of the victims' fathers. Did you hear that yesterday? I think one of the victims' fathers is going to be in the courtroom as well.
Gonzalez is going to be there, and he says that he wants to stare at Kohberger and let him know that that they are there and that they are going to make their presence felt in the courtroom. As once we have this door open up, we will listen in. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure if Kohberger will be escorted past the camera or if he will turn, because it'd be very interesting. I would imagine it's more likely than not that he's going to remain silent. He's not going to say anything to the cameras, but if he sees
they're definitely
going
to walk him in front of the cameras.
Right. That's what you would think.
They usually do.
That's what they,
in cases like this, they want everybody to see the person they got.
It's a modern day perp walk.
The perp walk, for sure. Now, explain to what this door is. Do we know, is this where he's being held, or is this into the courtroom, or?
This is believed to be the holding area. So
okay, where he's being held.
Yes, and you can see that we have had several.
Oh, it is almost 3:30.
Here's the door opening.
There it is.
Here is Bryan Kohberger. Let's listen in.
I'll do what I know.
Not just in one scene, I might be coming in after they film. Cool.
This is me. I don't know anything about it.
There could be a film here.
And who said that?
That was pretty uneventful.
His walk.
But we didn't
say
him.
much.
Didn't say anything. So now, this is the only spot that the media can set up. Is that right?
Mike, can you go back?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So okay. So let's
For
explain.
me, I think I might just keep the long shot.
All right. So let's explain exactly what happens from this point forward. Now, JB Buno, Josh Benson here with you on the left and right side of your screens, respectively. So here's how this is going to work. What just happened was Bryan Kohberger was transported from the holding area into the courtroom, where now the extradition hearing is going to begin in approximately 5 minutes' time. Of course, he arriving about 5 minutes ahead of the 3:30 scheduled start time on the docket in Pennsylvania court. So you would imagine that it's going to start relatively on time. Yeah. Of course, what will happen, as we understand it, the process looks like this. The judge will confirm that he is waiving his extradition. There will be a paperwork component. I'm not sure if the paperwork component is going to happen in the courtroom, where he's going to write and finally, sign, in essence, his waiver to waive extradition, or if that is going to happen in a separate area. But this is where basically the judge is going to confirm that he is waiving his extradition out of the state of Pennsylvania, where he was apprehended, and of course, waive his extradition to the state of Idaho. We will follow along now with the reporters that are inside the courtroom itself. I spoke with Pennsylvania court officials on the phone yesterday to get a little bit more as to what this was going to be like, and they said, "Look, it's not the biggest courtroom, it's not the biggest courthouse. So what it was going to look like was it's a first come first served basis for people, for reporters, members of the media, and members of the public to go in there and sit down." So I'm not entirely sure
there's
who's
a lot
in.
of media there.
Yeah, I would imagine that there was a lot of interest as far as getting a spot
But as for so no cameras in the courtroom whatsoever, no pool camera, no nothing, and you can only have it in the lobby. Is that what you understand?
Yeah, so the pool camera itself. So this is the pool camera feed.
Okay.
And the next time this feed is going to be relevant to us is when Kohberger is coming out.
Right.
And when Kohberger comes out, we will know, of course, the hearing is over. And I don't believe, if I remember correctly, I have the rules, basically the Pennsylvania Supreme Court rules in my inbox here. And I don't believe that live tweeting is permitted.
In the courtroom by journalists?
Yeah, I don't think so. I'll read this here.
Do they have to give up their phones?
Let's see here.
Well,
the court prohibits the taking of photographs, video, or motion pictures of any judicial proceedings or in the hearing room or courtroom during the judicial proceedings. Here's the part that I find interesting. Additionally, the court prohibits the transmission of communications by telephone, radio, television, or advanced communication technology from the hearing room or the courtroom during the process of or in connection with any judicial proceedings, whether or not the court is actually in session. So the court prohibits transmission of communications from telephone or advanced.
And if you do it, you could get kicked out of court. Be held in
so
contempt.
If they are enforcing Pennsylvania Supreme Court policy, there are no phones permitted inside of the courtroom. And
which makes journalists' job even harder. They got to wait like everybody else.
Yeah, because then you have to come. Who knows? I have been to courtrooms where they'll take your phone. They'll say, "Look,
oh sure,
yeah."
They don't mess. The judge doesn't
mess around. No, it's like this is the rules of this building. No phones past this point, and so it's kind of radio silence.
Oh, and Brian Enton from News Nation, he's obviously there. He says going in the courtroom now, cameras and live tweeting is not allowed, but we'll update here and on News Nation when it ends. Hearing set to start at 3:30. So yeah, 2 minutes away from what should be the start of this. But yeah, no live tweeting. So we're all going to just have to wait.
Yep. And this is a good opportunity for us to talk with our audience.
Yep.
But this camera shot, everybody, this camera shot, I would get rid of this camera shot, but this camera shot is still relevant because when the hearing is over, again, Kohberger will be transported and escorted down the hallway back from the courtroom and into his holding area. And whether or not the paperwork component for his extradition will happen, whether it's in the courtroom itself, in the holding area, or back at the correctional facility, that I'm a little bit fuzzy. I'm a little bit confused about, but there will be a process where he will have to sign to waive his own extradition. And then, of course, the question will be, Josh, it's going to be when exactly will he be extradited?
Yeah.
And what will that process look like? And
that's a big deal because once he arrives in Idaho, then we start to get details in the case in the form of the affidavit, in the form of just details of how police came to the conclusion that this was their person and that he is the suspect, and he's been charged now with 4 counts of first-degree murder.
So we will use our opportunity here as we wait for some action on this shot. Josh and I will answer some questions. Josh, you're on the 4 o'clock news. So you have how long with us?
No, I am doing later shows, so 5.
Oh, you're on the 5 o'clock. So you got some time.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So we're going to answer some questions. And so Molly Young is in our comment section. You can use hashtag HeyJosh, hashtag HeyJB. We can animate your comments on screen if you do so here on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live. When do you think we will find out more information? I think really there's been a trickling of information that has come out through various interviews and conversations. Some media outlets really just doing a lot of digging on this story, Josh. And then, of course, but really the big thing that everybody waiting for is the release of the arrest affidavit, because then we'll get
but
more
also,
on the evidence.
And you brought it up, the 4:30 presser today with the police.
Oh, yeah.
That could be a lot of information into what happened and how they got him, how he was arrested. I mean, detail. I mean, who knows? Who knows what they're going to talk about in detail in that coming up? But you just mentioned that that's going to happen, so that's good to hear.
I find it interesting. Yeah. I have to admit, I find it interesting that Pennsylvania State Police are calling a press conference. Maybe they got inundated with so many different requests for interviews. They said, look, as this departs Pennsylvania, quite literally, this case leaves Pennsylvania and becomes permanently settled in Idaho. This is our one opportunity to just talk about the case, and then we can close the book on it. Maybe that's their...
Well, and I wouldn't blame them, because think about how big of national attention, worldwide attention this case has gotten. So if you're a police department or any agency like they are, you're going to want to control some of the narrative because you're housing, suspect number 1. You know what I mean? Like, this is a big deal for not only them, but for Pennsylvania, for people following the case. They want to prove to the public that, hey, we have this under control. We know what we're doing. This is kind of what went down, and this is what's going to go down until he's extradited back to Idaho. So that's what I assume it'll be at 4:30.
Jamie in our comment section says #KJB. How long do you think that this will take? I think this is going to be extremely brief.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be long.
Yeah.
More of a formality is what we've been reading and learning about this scenario.
I mean, it's just the opportunity for the judge to have Kohberger in front of him in his courtroom. Okay, here
we go.
Here's some. Oh, they're waving. Okay, so this might be it. Let's bring up audio. Let's listen in. You saw the camera photographer wave. That is usually the universal sign for action's about to happen, communicating back to us at various news stations across the country. The time now, I just want to make note of this, 3:32. So if this really if this is it, that was extremely brief.
We do need to stop somewhere for dinner. So you have to think about that.
As we pick up on some of the side chatter from inside the courthouse as well.
I thought they were taking care of it at 3:33.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to send a few and then also go through and actually edit them the way I would like them.
I guess you have a whole press conference to edit too.
Brian, are you even trying to get this?
Yeah, I actually, when they opened the door, I kind of like this long disappear, let the
Maybe
door
not.
close thing. So I'm gonna
Seems like that might have been a false alarm. I was going to say
That would have been awfully fast.
That would have been a
Am I
record.
on the way?
I mean, court hearings are known to sometimes be extraordinarily short, but that might have been a record. So let's talk more about the Pennsylvania press conference, the PA State Police press conference that they announced, and I thought that this was interesting. They announced it for. We have to be ready on the touch screen, folks, to hit a button to go full screen so that we can monitor Kohberger coming out of court. But Pennsylvania State Police, they released this. Colonel Robert Ivanchik, Commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police, Major Christopher Paris, Area 3rd Commander of State Police, and Monroe County District Attorney David Christine Jr. will be holding a press conference today to discuss the apprehension of Bryan Christopher Kohberger. Kohberger was taken into custody early Friday by members of Troop N and the Special Emergency Response Team at a home in Chestnut Hill Township in Monroe County in connection to the homicides of 4 University of Idaho students on November 13th. The press conference will be available via live stream. A PA cast video will be available after the event. And then it, of course, goes into the what, when, where, and the media contact for the event.
By title for what it's scheduled as, but when he goes in there and signs the waiver paperwork,
I can't hear
Oh,
what
wait,
he's saying.
yeah, this is interesting.
that's all he's doing.
So I'm just trying to think for my caption. I said arrives for extradition hearing, so I should just say just arrives for a hearing.
Well, extradition, no, there's a, you're right, it's an extradition
Okay.
hearing that can go numerous ways.
Okay.
It's an extradition hearing that can be.
You got better hearing than I do.
But he is, yes.
Okay.
He was walking in.
Do I, though?
Oh, I can't hear a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm listening.
It's all correct.
Just wait till you get older, JB.
A hearing not to have, yeah.
Some of the normally off-camera interactions that occur when we're talking about. What's that now?
Yeah. He's in the hearing right now.
Oh, okay.
All right, cool.
Yeah, just confirming with our team here. Thank you, Jim.
He can really hear well. Jim can.
He must, and he's older than both of us.
Yeah.
So
what's his secret?
He has superb hearing. Shout out to Jim Hockett. He has Bryan Kohberger has according to this court officer waived extradition, and what he's doing now in the courtroom itself is signing the paperwork necessary for him to formally approve and legally approve of his own extradition. So Yeah,
And I
this
guess
was
the
quick.
logical question now too is how long now before he is extradited back to Idaho? That's what everybody wants to know.
Yep. And the judge might be announcing that here shortly. That answer might also come at the Pennsylvania State Police press conference, although that would surprise me a little bit. I'm sure it's possible, but that's going to be one. If they take questions, one of the questions is going to be, when is Kohberger leaving the Pennsylvania jurisdiction? And it'll be interesting to see if we get an answer on that. But all of this unfolding over the next hour or so, folks. So if you're just joining us, JB here with you live on WFLA Now. Josh Benson, Bryan Kohberger, the Idaho murder suspect. He is currently in the courtroom waiving his extradition, signing the paperwork necessary. What will then happen after that is he will be escorted here by court personnel, by members of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, I believe. They are going to be escorting him down the hallway back to his holding area. He will be transported back to the Pennsylvania Correctional Facility, awaiting his official transport. And I believe, of course, then it will be up to Idaho to arrange for transportation to bring him back to the state.
You know, what's interesting storylines, too, is just what we see on social media and what everybody talks about in terms of, all right, how was he apprehended? How did they tail the car? You know, they found the car at the parents' house. That's something that came out today. The dad had traveled back to Pennsylvania with Bryan in the vehicle. There's some speculation on if they both, I think there was 2 tickets that they got pulled over twice on the way back. Now we're seeing some speculation that may have not happened from police. So we don't know the true story there just yet. But also seeing things, you know, what kind of inmate was he in the jail? I saw some things on social media saying, hey, you know, he was going crazy and he was threatening people. The Monroe County Correctional Facility warden came forward, I know, to CNN and said that he has been a model prisoner who has not caused any problems during his time in detention. That's according to a source familiar with Kohberger's status at the facility. So this just kind of shows you that there's so much information out there and storylines that are happening so fast. And it's kind of tough to decipher like what really is happening in terms of, you know, what's true, what's false, and what do people want to believe. I think a lot of people out there think this is public enemy number one and want to believe he's...
Hold on, Josh.
Thank you.
I know they're not going to move from that spot.
Awesome, so yeah, we're definitely going to try to work out. Appreciate it. LT, do you mind hanging out 1 second? I'm just going to clear bathrooms, make sure we got nobody.
So this is the court personnel preparing for this to be over with, and for him to now come back down the hallway. So we'll stay on this now full screen with audio fully up, but we'll try to listen in with everybody else watching wherever you're watching from once Kohberger arrives down this hallway.
This building's closing up at 5, right?
4:30 usually.
I'm sorry, Josh. Did you want to finish that
No,
point, though?
I was just thinking, you know, this Kohberger's attorney, you know, he was on Today's Show this morning as well, and said in an interview, you know, he was shocked a little bit when he was arrested. Well, first of all, I'd be shocked a lot if I was ever arrested. But he was shocked a little bit, he said, and he believes he's going to be exonerated. This is what the attorney for Kohberger said in an interview today. So along with what the family is saying, they're shocked to hear these allegations. They say this couldn't be our son. You know, these are things that are now coming out from the family and from Kohberger himself. So it's until he gets back to Idaho and until we see some more evidence of what happened in this scenario to get him to be this #1 suspect. You know, there's going to be a lot of storylines on social media. We just got to be careful about what we report and what we follow as truth.
I'm pretty sure it was in the shot standing out in front of the building.
Yeah, sleuthy goosey. I'm paying attention to some comments here, but we're also trying to also get ready for Kohberger's next appearance in the hallway. Says hashtags both of us. The lawyer Labar says he got tickets, but he hadn't seen them, didn't know what they were. Indiana State Police say they have no record of stopping either Kohberger. And this is based on reporting by Fox News that on the trip in mid-December, on the trip home, Kohberger and his father, according to Labar, the attorney, that they got pulled over twice in Indiana, and Indiana State Police saying that there was no record of them getting pulled over. And that would mean, of course, that there weren't any tickets given.
Right.
But yeah, that was another nugget that came out from Fox News. As all these as interviews are done and questions are asked, this is how we get information between now and the arrest affidavit being released. Right.
So they saw how he came in for the press
We've got the audio up on full blast. We also have it full screen for you for, again, Bryan Kohberger exiting court.
They start right at 3:30?
Yeah, they're right on time.
I figured that, right?
They're starting to walk. Walking.
Here we go.
Do you got bathrooms? They should be clear.
Departing. 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 Departing.
Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger appears in Pennsylvania court, waiving his extradition, sending him back to the state where he is expected to answer to 4 first-degree murder charges in the deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. JB Buno, Josh Benson here with you live on WFLA Now across all platforms. So the extradition process is now in the rearview mirror, according to the court officer there, and we are now awaiting word as to when exactly the extradition is going to happen for the Washington State University student accused of 4 gruesome stabbing deaths at the University of Idaho on inside of a college residence back on November the 13th. Josh, so we have seen Kohberger arrive, depart. This was all done within really a 15-minute time period.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of confusion as to what just happened. So let's just go through what this hearing was all about. So extradition is a procedure where one jurisdiction will pretty much acknowledge with another jurisdiction that there's probable cause to bring someone back and arraign them there for prosecution. So that's what we're seeing here. One of the agencies bringing into this court hearing, Kohberger has decided to waive extradition, meaning he wants to get back there to Idaho as soon as possible to try to be exonerated from this crime. And that was set at 3:30. So it's what, 15 minutes. That's all it took. It was supposed to be a brief hearing. It was. Now, he may have gotten the opportunity to speak. Sometimes suspects in this case would be allowed that. We don't know if he was, because we're obviously not in the courtroom at this point. But the public defender, Jason Labar, says he is eager to get back to Idaho to be exonerated, and that's why he's not fighting extradition. So what happens in this case next, if he waives it, which he did, he's expected to be flown back to Moscow, Idaho, and could be there within 72 hours. So we don't know the exact time frame, but that could be the time frame that they're looking at. The Latah County prosecutors have said the affidavit for 4 charges of first-degree murder will remain sealed until he is returned, and he's also facing a charge of that felony burglary charge as well.
Just like I'm sure there was high demand to get a seat, if you remember the press in Pennsylvania for today, I'm sure that there was if not higher demand, to get phones activated so that reporters in the courtroom could tweet out. Brian Enton, I know, has received his phone, and he is tweeting as we speak. He's got a series of tweets coming in, and we'll start here with the first one. Bryan Kohberger waived his extradition hearing. He had to sign a waiver in court. The judge explained to Kohberger the charges against him in Idaho and that he was voluntarily allowing authorities to transfer him to Idaho. Really, this is very routine.
Yep.
Exactly what we expected would occur. It was quick. It was to the point. I think Pennsylvania, with the press conference, again, if you're just joining us, the Pennsylvania State Police, they have called a press conference at 4:30, and we're going to have that press conference here on WFLA now. The exact reason for the press conference, it might just be, and I'm speculating here. I'm admittedly speculating here. It might just be because they have been inundated with so many questions on the Pennsylvania side of things that they want to do a press conference just to answer questions, and then once we have Kohberger being transported, it's just them signaling that this is no longer a Pennsylvania case. This is going to be an Idaho case from this point forward. So it might just be them, kind of crossing their T's, dotting their I's, and being done with this section of this story. But this is Kohberger being transported back to the holding area. He will be taken to the Pennsylvania Correction Facility where he was this morning. And then, of course, that they will arrange for his transportation, his extradition back to the state of Idaho.
And I think this is where you're going to see online a lot of people saying this is where the case truly starts, because now they have a lot to prove in the fact of three questions. Okay, the motive. What was the motive here? Why did he allegedly do this? Did he know the victims? That's another big question that needs to be answered, and hopefully we get some of these answers when he's back in Idaho. And what evidence do police have against the suspect? And where's the murder weapon? That's another one. Yeah. That's a big one. They want to find that murder weapon. I don't believe they have it. We haven't seen anything that's indicated that they do. But those are questions now that need to be answered. And that's why you're going to hear about everybody saying now is where the case really starts, because until we see that charging affidavit, until we see some information why the police feel so strongly that this man committed the crimes, we're kind of in that middle ground waiting to see the next step.
We're paying attention to your hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyJosh questions and comments coming in on social media. Josh, well, let's pay attention to Twitter too. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. We are now awaiting a 4:30 press conference with Pennsylvania State Police, where they are going to be answering questions on the Pennsylvania side of things. Chloe wants to know, hashtag HeyJB, do you think Brian will change his plea once the affidavit is released, or does he know the evidence against him already? Let's make this clear. He hasn't entered a plea. He is not yet in the jurisdiction where he is facing these charges. So he has to be physically in the state of Idaho for him to answer to these charges in front of a judge. So that process is so I think there's this assumption that, of course, that he is going to plead not guilty. It certainly sounds as if he's going to plead not guilty, but make no mistake about it, he has not entered a not guilty plea yet. Does he know the evidence against him already is an interesting question. The arrest affidavit, of course, does Jason Labar have that information, him being a Pennsylvania public defender? That's a question that I really don't know the answer to that question. It's actually a very interesting question. Does his Pennsylvania attorney have the details regarding his...
Privy to the information ahead of time?
The evidence, privy to the information before it's released publicly. That's a great question.
Because it is sealed. I don't know how...
How sealed?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer either. But that's a very, very excellent question.
You're asking a couple non-lawyers right now.
Yeah, but look, that's something that we'll try to get details on. Whether or not is Kohberger waiving his extradition knowing the evidence against him? I would imagine that by now, word has received that he's received word. What we know, what we are hearing is that reportedly through law enforcement sources, okay, that there is a DNA component to this, a DNA match of some kind. We also know that the Elantra, the white Elantra that we can say now, was discovered at his property, or what police believe to be the white Hyundai Elantra that they have been searching for. So he has to know that. He absolutely has to know that to some extent, to some degree, through his representation. However, whether or not he's aware of the evidence, that's a really good question.
Is that feed still up? Do you see anybody come out of the courtroom, or
the feed is down? Okay. They have ended the pool feed, so this is but there is, Yeah,
Well, because my question is, the father of one of the victims, Steve Concalves, of Kaylee's dad, she was the 21-year-old daughter, his daughter, who was murdered. He was in there, and essentially he's positioning himself to be pretty much the victim who wants to be the face of the victims for this case, so to speak. So he was talking to NBC News earlier. He says, "I want him to be sick of seeing us and sick of knowing that these people won't let it go. It's a battle of wills, and we'll see who wins." So this dad, as fired up as he should be, is going to make his presence known, and has today. He was in that courtroom for that hearing, as far as we understand today, and it sounds like he's going to be everywhere he can possibly be for every step of the way on this case.
I was just checking because we had planned, and we've been working on this over the course of today, planned to have access to some camera feeds outside the courtroom, because now, just like we saw him earlier, and I'll punch up this video, just like we had the video of his arrival, there's now going to be the video of his departure, and whether or not is there going to be a crowd of some kind that gathers in the area where they're going to transport him back to the Pennsylvania Correction Facility. I just checked our feeds. There are no active feeds outside the courthouse, which means that the camera crews that we have access to, they haven't powered on their signals. If they do power on their signal, believe me, here in the Stream Center, we'll be able to tap into it just like that with the touch of a button. And we'll be able to take you to live outside the courthouse, where he is going to be then transported back to the correctional facility where he began his day, awaiting extradition to Idaho. Lisa with a really good question. Lisa, will they drive or fly him back to Idaho?
That is a good question.
It's another really good. This is why
I think they've done both in the past.
They have. Extraditions can be done via air. It can be done.
I'm sure of flying, because it's pretty far distance. How far distance is it? I mean, it would be just quicker to
just don't fly Southwest.
It's very,
sorry,
very fair point.
I couldn't avoid.
Hey, but they're back on track, right?
Right.
That's what we've been reporting.
Couldn't avoid the opportunity there.
Yeah,
it's just softball toss there.
That was a good one.
So will they drive or fly him back to Idaho? I guess. Look, I guess we will find out, and that might those details might have been discussed briefly in court as to what the extradition process is going to look like. Did Bryan Entin finish his tweeting? Let's see. Keeping an eye on our feeds here. Yeah, okay, so I'll read the rest of Bryan Entin's tweets. Kohberger told the judge he is not on any medication that would impact him making the decision. The judge said he has to be sent to Idaho within 10 days.
Oh, 10 days. I would have thought 72 hours, but...
And then just seconds ago, Kohberger came into court and made eye contact with his family, sitting in the front row. He nodded at them. His mom cried, and his sister comforted the mom. A deputy brought her tissues. So Kohberger, according to Bryan Entin, made contact with his own family clearly emotional in the courtroom. Whether or not there was any moment of eyes meeting, or if there was any moment of Kohberger seeing any of the victims' families, that hasn't been. Look, we're going to get all this information over the course of this live stream. We'll get more details as soon as it comes out. But as of right now, that's what we're going based off of our friend Bryan Entin. We'll go over back to some other comments.
And look, I would imagine he doesn't want to sit in jail for 10 days. If he believes that he's innocent and wants to fight this, I don't know how much control he has in making it happen faster than 10 days, but that's what the judge set as the limit.
Sierra Travels, what would have happened had he not waived extradition? So then they have to fight for extradition, and that would have elongated the process.
Yeah.
And then it's also, look, in the court of public opinion, that's not going to help your cause. If you're fighting extradition, that says something. That says something about...
Well, it sends the wrong optics.
It does. Agreeing to extradition and saying you're looking forward to being exonerated, that sends a very clear message that you're looking forward to clearing your name.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a benefit to fight it unless you're trying to build a case from where you are, but you can't really build a case unless you know really what you're up against. So it's kind of a moot point.
We'll continue to take your questions and your comments. I want to get this out there though as well, and we'll put away Sarah's comment here for just a moment. Fox News reported this afternoon that Bryan Kohberger's defense team, not his attorney, his defense team, hired investigators, and that those investigators arrived at the home where he is accused of fatally stabbing the University of Idaho students in Moscow. 3 men, I'll read this, 3 men, 2 women, this is according to Fox News, arrived at the King Road house at about noon Eastern time, spent 45 minutes taking video inside and outside of the property. 4 of the investigators left after touring the home, while a crime scene reconstruction analyst, remained. Very, very interesting report from Fox News. So this is we're starting to get the inklings of a considerable legal showdown here between the prosecutors in Idaho and between Bryan Kohberger, who isn't just going to be represented by his defense team, but also, too, this is somebody who is studying criminal justice.
Right.
Somebody who has a bachelor's and a master's degree, Josh.
Right.
In fields related to the exact situation that he finds himself in, which, of course, in and of itself is interesting to say the least. So how he now goes about proving what he claims to be his innocence is going to be really the major storyline now going forward. But really, everyone's just waiting for this evidence to drop because, you know, if the evidence is concrete, it certainly points to look, everyone wants justice. Justice is the word that's on the tip of everyone's tongues. The 4 University of Idaho students, their families have been devastated by this just terrible act of evil. And if this is the person who committed the crime, then everyone wants there to be justice. And what justice looks like will take shape over the coming months. Now,
I want to address a tweet too from Elena Clemens, saying Steve Goncalves said he would be in the court in Idaho. He did not say he was flying to PA to attend BK's extradition hearing. Please report accurately. All right, I was going off the fact that he's saying that he's going to be wherever he can be.
I'm sorry, wait. What did we have incorrect?
This woman is saying Steve Goncalves said he would be in the court in Idaho. He did not say he was flying to PA to attend BK's extradition hearing. Please report accurately. So if I have that incorrect, then I've seen it incorrectly a few different times on other news agencies.
Let's get that.
So that's why I was hoping if we could see people coming out of the courtroom, because then it could verify who was there and who wasn't.
Yep. And what's interesting too, again, was so Steve was going to be at the Idaho court hearings to look him in the face and let him know this is not going away anytime soon.
Okay, so maybe that was.
Yep. No, but you
That's
know what though?
Thank you, Elena, for. I'm going to give you a like. There you go.
That's also been part of. I might have had that incorrect too.
But you know what? I think he, as a father, I think he's going to be everywhere he can be. I think if that happened to my daughter, you can bet I would be anywhere I could be at any time, because this is something that his daughter was ripped from his life, and if this is the prime suspect, then.
Yeah, I got a similar tweet. So my apology. I misspoke too. That Steve was not
that might
in
be
the courtroom
incorrectly
today.
Across the.
So our apologies there for that inaccuracy. That Steve Goncalves is going to be at the legal proceedings in Idaho, and not today in Pennsylvania. So excuse us. Apologies. I misread that as that he was going to be in court today. Yeah, and people who are saying online that there's video of him already leaving, I'm not surprised by that at all. Yeah, I was really hoping to have that feed here, folks, but I do not control the camera crews outside of the courtroom. And
there's not a lot in terms of tweets either. In terms of, it was such a short hearing.
Yeah, I see really video of Kohberger leaving court.
Yeah.
So we were hoping to have feeds from outside of the courthouse.
Yeah. And if you're just joining us, we don't have a camera inside the courtroom, so we didn't get to see who he looked at, how he acted, all those details. We can get them from the reporters who were in there at the time, but phones, tweeting, video wasn't allowed inside the courtroom.
So let's go back to the comments section. Thank you for the understanding there as we corrected the error. You know, Gianna Marie, #KJB, is it true wanting to represent himself in Idaho? I haven't heard anything of the sort about him representing himself in Idaho. But that'd be
probably not advised.
No, but
from his public attorney.
We have seen cases where you represent yourself and then things go off the rails.
Yep.
You know, so this is interesting. Mom. My mom does not look like that. My mom doesn't look like that. So this is not my mom. It's someone's mom, but it's not my mom. #HeyJB, will he stay in Idaho forever? So this is a very interesting question. So look, he's being extradited to Idaho. He's going to answer the charges. And he's not leaving Idaho until that legal process plays out. And if he is convicted, then, again, we don't want to go too far down this hypothetical. But if he is convicted, you're facing either, look, that case could go capital, and we're talking about the death penalty being on the table. We're also talking about the possibility of life without parole. So, again, this is somebody who is looking forward, reportedly looking forward to clearing his name and to being exonerated, saying that he is not guilty of the crimes that he has been accused of. If he is able to prove his innocence, and if it's determined that he is not responsible for the crimes, plural, the answer to this question is likely no. If he is convicted, the answer to this question very well might be yes, depending, of course, on the legal process and how it plays out. But there is so much navigating that needs to be done between A and Z. We're not even, I mean, he hasn't even arrived in the state where he's supposed to answer these charges.
You know what I find the most fascinating, too, is how quickly information can be discovered on somebody.
Yeah.
In this day and age, with just so many people, a lot of you watching right now, the ability to just tap in and find information so fast is just unbelievable to me in this day and age, because we have a whole profile on this guy of what he did, where he went to school, how he acted when he was in class, you know, where he drove, what kind of car he had, and, you know, who he hung out with. We've had people, close personal friends and exes, reach out to us saying that, you know, they were with him or they were friends with him. And that was all within the first few days. So, I mean, the information travels so quickly. It's just wild to me that, you know, in this day and age, how much information you get so fast. But that can also be bad, too, because that can also lead you down rabbit holes where you start to believe things that aren't true. So, again, I always come back to, we got to wait and see what the information and the evidence is before we really move forward on this.
So our NBC sister station, NBC Philadelphia, they had a reporter in the courtroom by the name of Deanna Durante, and tweeting, Bryan Kohberger remained calm, stoic in court, answering a judge's questions and telling her he is waiving his right to extradition and return to Idaho willingly to face 4 counts of murder and that burglary charge. Live updates coming your way on their station. Interesting, just the words there, excuse me. Calm and stoic in court. Take that for what you will, folks. Let's go back to the comment section. And I just had a really interesting Victoria Patrick. Yes, if we have a feed. Now it's my job here to organize feeds. It's what I do.
I did see
here in the
coordinates.
Stream Center. Yeah. So as far as getting that feed, that I'm here in the Stream Center. This entire room is designed to bring in live feeds and distribute it to you wherever you're watching from, and to make it as accessible as possible. That's the whole mission statement.
Air traffic control.
That's right. And
see, it's like an air traffic control center.
It certainly is. And what we'll try to do is we will try to provide, if the feed comes in, it's a tap away on a touch screen and we take you to it. But I worked all afternoon to ensure that we would have that feed, and that feed is coming up in about 24 minutes time. 4:30 Eastern is when we're expected to have it. Autumn is the best. #KJB. I think he pleads not guilty. I think that is the more likely scenario. And here's the one. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name. GNRBABE. Hashtag HeyJB, will the trial in Idaho be televised? So I talked to a lot of states and a lot of court officials, and I always call them up, and it's always my first question. What is your courtroom policy for live feeds inside of the courtroom? And I want to make this clear, every state has different rules when it comes to the transparency of their courtroom. Pennsylvania's rules were made very, very clear to me yesterday that the courtroom itself is off limits, but the courthouse isn't. It's kind of an odd quirk, right? That we were able to get hallway access, but not courtroom access. But look, every state has their different rules, and we'll find out what the rules are in Idaho.
Hey, I want to give a hat tip out to Mabel Quintanilla. She just gave me forwarded me a tweet from John Webb, who's a reporter out at, looks like North Idaho reporter, KHQ TV. Says Ann Taylor, the chief public defender of Kootenai County, will be representing Bryan Kohberger in the state of Idaho. Reached out to her office just now, but was sent to her voicemail. So now, thanks for posting that. I will look and see if that continues to be the name that is going to be surrounded by his defense. Appears to be. So if that is the case, you're going to hear a lot about her. So we'll start digging on that, get some more information on who's going to be representing. But according to this reporter, it's Ann Taylor, Kootenai County. Thanks, Mabel, for forwarding that on.
Katie, hashtag HeyJB, do you think Kohberger is guilty based on body language and overall attitude? So no one can answer this question. And I bring this up just to, this introduces us to this, the conversation that we were having earlier about how people look at his eyes, he's guilty.
Because they want answers. The people just want to know things so fast. But that's a fair question, because there are body language experts out there who will take a serial killer and look at the mannerisms and the body language and actually make a discernible, judgment on, yes, this person has tells and this person has things that you can tell when they're lying or whatnot. So, I mean, there's definitely a science to it. I mean, the average person like you or I couldn't probably figure any of that out. We could assume we did, but yeah, it's too dangerous at this point to make those kind of jumps in a case like this, because there's just so much more work to be done and so much more information that the public just doesn't know yet.
And of course, we've heard so much confidence being expressed by Chief Fry in Moscow that they have their guy. But I want to remind our audience, we're very early on in this process. The arrest affidavit will tell us so much. And that I really hope that people, once the arrest affidavit drops, we'll likely launch a live stream here. We'll comb through it. We'll go through it, a lot of it live. And hopefully, look, arrest affidavits, I've gone through, I can't, countless arrest affidavits. I'm just hoping that the redactions are minimal, because the redactions, so many times there's so much hype surrounding an arrest affidavit as investigators detail, what evidence they have. But there is, of course, a process that has to go through before it's released to the public, and redactions are made for the integrity of the ongoing investigation and for the legal process. Redactions exist in different forms in different jurisdictions, so we're just hoping that the redactions in and of themselves are minimal, so that we can get a clear picture as to what evidence is against Kohberger. Again, if you're just joining us, JB and Josh here with you. We are awaiting a 4:30 press conference from PA. And I'm getting that that's set up now. Okay. So that's, I'm just shooting a note out to our teams to make sure that we have that.
I may have to jump and get onto the newscast, but how long do you think?
Well, we got the presser coming up in 20 minutes. Up to you. You're my streaming partner in crime.
I could come back.
Okay. It depends, of course, on...
You don't like to leave a man hanging, though.
No.
On an island.
Josh, you
This
complete.
is
you
a tough
complete
job
me,
to do by
Josh.
yourself, right?
Yeah, you complete me, Josh.
How many times have you done this by yourself?
A lot, and it's a lot easier when
To
I
tread
have
water and just keep it going.
teamwork makes the stream work.
But yeah, but it's nice to have people commenting. This real-time commenting is awesome.
Here's what we're gonna do, folks. We are gonna momentarily take a 3-minute break in preparation for the 4:30 press
Good
conference.
idea.
I'll be able to take our. I'll be able to talk to our team in person just to make sure that we're getting a feed, and so we will be more equipped and best equipped to handle the 4:30 press conference if we take about a 3-minute break. So don't go anywhere, folks. We will be right back here on WFLA.
WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger leaving the courtroom after agreeing to waive his extradition, sending him back to Idaho to answer to 4 first-degree murder charges. And now just into the WFLA Now Stream Center, a feed from Pennsylvania, where Pennsylvania State Police will be speaking momentarily, giving their very latest on the case. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now, alongside my colleague, WFLA's Josh Benson, hanging out with us here in the Stream Center. Again, the very latest on this story on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We just got in the feed moments ago from Pennsylvania State Police. They are going to be speaking. They have called a press conference here today. The exact reason for their press conference, I believe, I guess we'll find out here momentarily, but the exact reason why they are calling a press conference wasn't made exactly clear. They just want to discuss details, questions that they have been being asked about the apprehension of Bryan Kohberger, wanted, of course, and the suspect in the University of Idaho stabbing deaths. So this is the feed here in the center of your screen. We're about 5 to 10 minutes away, Josh.
Yep. Yeah, and we just heard actually watched, obviously, the video of Kohberger coming in and out of the hearing, the extradition hearing. A lot of people asking what happened inside of that hearing, and I'm starting to see some of the notes from some of the reporters. Bradley Warren's a reporter out there who was in the courtroom. He said, he kept looking at his mom and his sisters. At some point, he mouthed out something to them that was unclear, but he said that he made the decision voluntary, nothing more than yes, and I understand. We also found out that Ann Taylor will be the public attorney in Idaho when he is extradited back to the state of Idaho. So we're getting a few details of what happened during that hearing, as well as what's going to happen once he's extradited in terms of his defense.
So just confirming, so a public defender in Idaho.
Ann Taylor is her name, right?
Right. So so a public defender representing him in Pennsylvania, and then, of course, a public defender representing him in Moscow, Idaho. As we see here, look at the size of the group of media that have assembled here in the room. Really not all that surprised considering the magnitude of the case. But as soon as this press conference gets underway, we will, of course, turn up the audio. We will listen in, and we'll take you here live, full screen. And in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll answer some questions here out of the YouTube Live comment section. We're about to relaunch on Facebook Live. Jordan asking, hashtags for us both, do you think that because he studies criminology, he has a plan? I would imagine that the plan is very fluid and coming together. This is something that is going across now a couple of different states. But does his degree in criminology inform him on having a plan? We really don't know the answer to this question.
Well, I think, and the bigger question is, he's dealing with public defenders. Does he not have an attorney, nor maybe doesn't have the money to afford an attorney, a high-profile attorney that's going to come out and represent him in this case? No bigger, higher-profile attorney has come to say, I want to represent this person as of what we're learning, because this Ann Taylor, this chief public defender in Kootenai County, if I'm pronouncing that right, will be the one representing him. So, as you said, JB, from Pennsylvania to Idaho. He's dealing with public defenders. So as far as having a plan from criminology, I mean, it's too early to tell, what his plans are. Does he have a knowledge of, well, we're not going to go down that route because I could easily go down that route. But I think a lot of people on social media have gone down that route. What does he know from his degree in criminology or his PhD studies? What does he know about situations like this? It's all speculation. And I think right now all he needs to focus on is getting the defender in place, going to Idaho and trying to exonerate himself from these charges. I think that's primarily the focus.
We will, a lot of these questions are going to become more clear over time, and really, we might get some answers in this press conference. Which, again, I'll admit, I'm a little, I'm curious as to really what the exact subject matter is going to be for this press conference. But I guess we're going to find out here momentarily. Police have something to say, and of course we're going to be listening with our pens on the ready to take notes, because this is now leaving the Pennsylvania arena and going into the legal arena in Idaho, and that's where this story will continue from this point forward. So, also too, have we heard any details on when the extradition is actually going to begin? I believe the way that it works, and I'm not speaking here with a high degree of confidence, but a relatively moderate degree of confidence, in that Idaho arranges for, of course, the extradition to the actual transport from one state to the other. It's something that really Idaho is responsible for. So we might find that out by the end of today as to, is he going to be flying? Is it going to be a drive?
And the judge said the limit is 10 days. So it has to be done within 10 days. Sometimes this happens within 72 hours is what I've been seeing a lot of. So yeah, it's going to come down. And the suspect, I would imagine you'd want to get there as quickly as possible, because to avoid having to sit in jail any longer in Pennsylvania. I think we'll see it in the next few days. Personally, that's what I think is going to happen.
True Crime Junkie, #KJB. I thought that for sure he would have a high-profile lawyer to represent him. I wonder if that is going to change. I was talking to my wife about this last night, and she made a good point. She's like, maybe he doesn't have the money. I mean, he's a student. Maybe he just doesn't have, if you ask yourself, if you were committed of a crime right now, do you have access to money to hire they could cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars on a retainer, depending on how big of an attorney you get. So yeah, maybe that's the case, or maybe a higher profile attorney will come in to offer to do it and to be on his defense team. We've seen that in the past. So, I mean, just the fact that we have a name now as a public defender, that doesn't necessarily mean that's who it's going to be through the proceedings. Yeah, will there be, an attorney taking this pro bono? I mean, my goodness, I guess. Look, a lot of that is going to be answered in the days and weeks ahead. But
you got to believe there's a lot of defense attorneys out there wanting to make a name for themselves who said this is one of the biggest cases now in the world that people are talking about. I'm going to hitch my wagon to it and try to get this guy off the charges.
Yeah, I mean, an arrest affidavit,
that's not far-fetched,
getting released, and then the evidence becoming more clear might also look. Attorneys far and wide are going to be looking at that arrest affidavit to see just exactly how much they have
what
on
they're
him.
Dealing with, right?
Yep.
So where is this now? Is this the police headquarters?
Yeah,
or
let me get the exact
state
location.
Police?
Let me get the exact location.
That's a tiny room.
This is the Monroe County District Attorney's Office in Stroudsburg, PA. So the same county, so not too far away. In fact, reporters might be heading over to this location, going from the courthouse over here. Who knows? Excuse me. So this is about to get underway. We'll continue to answer some questions while we have another, really, it's 4:29, so that snuck up on me. This will begin momentarily. Let's bring up our audio here for the first time. And here are
they're starting.
Pennsylvania State
right
Police.
On time. I love it.
And let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Adam Reed. I'm the Director of the Communications Office with the Pennsylvania State Police. Thank you for joining us here. The order of speakers is going to be our Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner, Colonel Robert Ivanchik, Major Christopher Paris, he's our Area 3 Commander, and First Assistant District Attorney, Monroe County, Mike Mancuso. After the speakers have finished, we will then take a handful of questions. Colonel Ivanchik.
Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Robert Ivanchik, Commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police. While I monitored the investigation into the horrific murders of the University of Idaho students, I did not imagine the investigation would lead to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. My heart goes out to the families of the victims, their friends, the community of Moscow, and the University of Idaho. No words can heal the pain associated with the loss of a child. Their young lives were ended far too soon. In law enforcement, we understand the best thing we can do for victims and their families is to follow every lead, collect every piece of evidence, and bring those responsible to justice. I am proud of the members of the Pennsylvania State Police who were able to help in this investigation. The cooperative relationship between our local, state, and federal partners stands the test of time. The officers, troopers, and federal agents work together tirelessly, putting in long, difficult hours. Communication and cooperation are imperative to success and to ensure the integrity of the case remains maintained. The culmination of that cooperation ultimately led to take the suspect into custody and afforded the families some sense of peace they deserve. I want to thank the Moscow Police Department, the Idaho State Police, and our partners in the Federal Bureau of Investigation for their support, assistance, and coordination. I also want to recognize the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. And finally, I need to acknowledge the members of the Pennsylvania State Police, specifically members of Troop N, our Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and our Bureau of Emergency and Special Operations, who assisted in safely taking the suspect into custody in the early morning hours of December 30th. As previously indicated by Chief James Fry of the Moscow Police Department, specific details regarding this investigation cannot be released until the suspect is extradited to Idaho and presented with the probable cause affidavit. At this time, I will turn the microphone over to Major Christopher Paris, Commander of Area 3, who was involved in the coordinated efforts to take the suspect into custody.
Thank you, Colonel. Area 3 comprises Troops F, P, N, and R, and is made up of 1,000 approximately of the women and men, civilian and enlisted, in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. I'd like to introduce to my left Captain Norm Kramer, who's the commander of Troop N Hazleton, which is comprised of Carbon, Monroe, Columbia, and parts of Luzerne counties. I would like to reiterate, as the colonel said, that Idaho law prohibits any release of information contained within the affidavits. So we're going to do our best today to talk about what phase we are currently in the investigation, and it has entered a new phase with the waiver for extradition. And the continuing primary goal is the seeking of justice through successful prosecution and conviction, bearing the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So with that in mind, we're trying to balance essentially two things: the public's desire for information against the need to maintain the integrity of the investigation and protect the suspects, accused at this point's due process. So I'll now attempt to give you an operational picture with the best information I can release at the time. So this begins when the Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation troopers were contacted by the FBI about assisting with surveillance of the accused in this case. I'd like to take the opportunity to specifically thank several individuals. Special Agent in Charge Jackie McGuire and Assistant Special Agent in Charge Dave Carter from the Philadelphia Field Division, as well as Supervisory Special Agent Bill Vigorito of the Scranton RA. We're very lucky in PSP to have a collaborative relationship with the Bureau, both in Pennsylvania and beyond, and their people are absolutely excellent. So as the investigation progressed, Troop N Criminal Investigation Section, commanded by Captain Kramer over my left shoulder here, began to collaborate with authorities in Idaho. Specifically, I'd like to acknowledge Lieutenant James Curto, who is here today, Sergeant Anthony Ferdinand, Corporal John Chulak, who is not present with us, and Troopers Leary and Knoll, who are here with us today. It was through this collaboration and the charges pending in Idaho that those troopers were able to obtain search warrants and a fugitive justice warrant that was prepared here in Monroe County for the location in Chestnut Hill Township and the fugitive from justice warrant for Mr. Kohberger, respectively. I'd like to acknowledge the Monroe County District Attorney, David Christine, as well as First Assistant Mike Mancuso and their entire office. The support that we received was absolutely excellent. Once those warrants were obtained, the Bureau of Emergency and Special Operations, BESO, coordinates our Special Emergency Response Team, CERT. They were selected to serve those warrants, the 3 search warrants and the fugitive from justice warrant. To define what CERT is, it's a full-time tactical team maintained by PSP to deal with high-risk warrant situations, barricades, and other incidents requiring specialized tactical training or other capabilities. From their perspective, we essentially task them to go out and serve a arrest warrant for someone accused of a quadruple murder. They're activated several hundred times a year throughout the Commonwealth. We don't typically hear of their work in a forum like this because they serve the warrant, the person's taken into custody, and they go about their assignment. They are the ultimate professionals. It's a volunteer team. They're highly trained and highly motivated. Captain Norm Kramer, over my left shoulder, was assigned as the top comm for the CERT activation, which means he was responsible for coordinating our tactical preparations. So, tactical assets were then staged in the county, in Monroe County, into the evening of Thursday, December 29th, last Thursday. And in the early hours of Friday, December 30th, those warrants were executed at the location. Mr. Kohberger was taken into custody without incident. The scene was turned over to the FBI Evidence Response Team for processing. Mr. Kohberger was then turned over to the Monroe County Prison, where he has remained in their custody since. I'd like to thank the Monroe County Sheriff and the Stroud Regional Police Department for their support as well during the extradition process. Arrangements currently are being made to deliver Kohberger back to Idaho, where he can have continued due process and face these charges. So it's with that I will turn it over to First Assistant Mike Mancuso.
Thank you, Major. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike Mancuso with the DA's office, the First Assistant District Attorney. I want to give my condolences to the families of the victims out in Idaho for their loss. It's my sincere hope that this marks a clear step in the right direction of effectuating justice for those folks. My office's role was relatively recent. We weren't advised of the presence of the defendant in our county until only a couple days before the apprehension of the defendant. But when we were told, we came together and worked very closely with Captain Kramer, who did an excellent job in almost like a clockwork operation. Part of my duties were to ensure that 3 separate search warrants were issued. Those affidavits attached to those search warrants are still under seal, so I can't discuss their contents with you. But one was for the person of Mr. Kohberger, collecting DNA and photographs, that sort of thing. One was for the white Elantra vehicle, which I understand has been seized and is being processed. And one was for the address, the residence itself that he was living in with his family. I was at the scene, and I have to say that Major Paris and Captain Norm Kramer did an outstanding job in coordinating the efforts, not only of the numerous Pennsylvania State police troopers there, but officers from other jurisdictions and disciplines within those jurisdictions to make this a very smooth, highly competent professional operation. It is a quirk, apparently. It's not in the norm of the states I'm familiar with that Idaho does not release
their probable cause affidavit in support of their arrest warrant until after their defendant is returned to that state. But having read those documents and the sealed affidavits of probable cause, I definitely believe that one of the main reasons the defendant chose to waive extradition and hurry his return back to Idaho was the need to know what was in those documents. So that's a significant development. Beyond that, looking at the scope of the situation and the ties this defendant has to my county, I would hold our office at the disposal of the Idaho authorities to help facilitate a complete background investigation into the defendant, both activities prior to the murders occurring within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and his activities after the murders in Pennsylvania. So we stand ready to assist with that effort on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
We can now open it up for questions.
Can you tell us what state police specifically did, or can you give us any indication as to the operations of state police when you were notified? And you talk about putting tactical in the area. How long were they there? And what's the...
We're not in a position to give you an exact time. It was at some point prior to when the surveillance was taken as the investigation progressed to a point where search warrants could be obtained and the probable cause for those search warrants and an arrest warrant, a fugitive from justice warrant based on the arrest warrant out in Idaho were obtained. We began to take the tactical steps to plan to serve them.
Were you collecting evidence prior to his arrest?
At this point, like we said, it's very much pertinent to what's in the affidavits, which we cannot speak about.
What's it about his demeanor when the arrest actually happened?
Present sense impression, as likewise ongoing investigation, can't discuss it.
How, Rob Van, 69 News, how is Kohberger being transported back to Idaho?
Those arrangements are being discussed right now, as well as the logistics. The court order says, those of you who heard it today, it's within the next 10 days, so we're currently working on that in coordination with authorities out in Idaho. Sir?
The defendant's mother in the courtroom.
I can't comment. I don't know.
Is he being held in the Monroe County jail until he's extradited, or was he removed to another?
No, he is lodged in the. Since he was dropped off there Friday morning, he's resided in Monroe County Prison.
But still, and until he's
Correct,
extradited,
yes.
he'll be there.
Are the marshals moving him, or which group is
At this
moving
point,
him?
that's still being coordinated between the state police and the authorities out there. We don't know.
Will the affidavit be unsealed when he arrives in Idaho?
I don't want to speak out of my lane. When I watched the press conference on Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I was alerted to the fact that, according to Idaho state law, that the affidavits have to be served to him once he's extradited back before they could be unsealed.
Did he say has anyone else been arrested?
Ongoing investigation, ma'am.
Has a motive been determined?
I can't comment on that either. I apologize.
Who transports him, sir? Does Pennsylvania State Police, the Monroe County Sheriff's Department?
He's presently back. He was transported from the courthouse by Monroe County Sheriff. And the logistics of who's going to transport him out to Idaho are still being discussed. We don't know. Yeah.
Can you confirm the time of his arrest and how much law enforcement presence there actually was?
I would say it was in the early morning hours of Friday, December 30th. Tactical assets on scene were probably in the neighborhood of 50.
Were you afraid he was going to get tipped off before you got him?
I would say overall about this entire operation, and the credit goes, this is a part that the state police played humbly. You look at Moscow Police Department, 38 sworn, 19,000 leads, the video evidence that they had to develop in order to put that out, all public source information. But when you talk about the service of a high-risk warrant for someone who's committed or alleged to have committed 4 homicides, there's nothing routine about that. And all of those tactical steps that were taken were in conjunction with the best efforts of the authorities, local, state, and federal, both in Idaho and here, to ensure that we could do it safely and to ensure that we could get him into custody and that those service or the search warrants could occur.
Sir, can we ask a question of the first assistant district attorney? Mr. Mancuso, you described having read to a degree the contents of that affidavit of probable cause, and that you possibly speculated or theorized that he wanted to get back to read that as well, since he can't read that. Can you give us an indication, though, of the seriousness of what you did read? I know you can't talk about it, but can you share with us something?
Yeah, I can't get into the details, sir, but I can say it involved the defendant's connection to a scene of a crime consisting of 4 murdered people. So that's the significance of it.
Can you confirm that there is a connection between Bryan Kohberger and any of the victims?
I can't discuss that, ma'am.
How confident are you that he is guilty of these crimes?
That wouldn't be my place to say. Certainly confident enough that there was ample probable cause for the issuance of the various warrants in the case.
What was your reaction when you heard this? You've all talked about you followed this. This happened states away. When you get that call, or you all get the call, that this person could be right here in your home area, what's your reaction?
Well, I was surprised. Really, Monroe County, of all places, it hits close to home. It's a normal human reaction, I would think, under the circumstances.
Do you know when he and his father left Idaho or Washington and drove to Pennsylvania, what that date was?
No, I don't know the exact date, ma'am.
Approximately, we understand the middle of December, is that correct?
I think that's approximate.
And what about, we had heard reports that they were stopped not once but twice on the highway. Can you elaborate?
I'll defer to his Pennsylvania public defender on that.
Do you have reason to believe that Kohberger is connected to other crimes and unsolved mysteries in the area?
I wouldn't answer that question at this time.
You start looking at some that may be unsolved where he was around.
That would be a normal thing to do.
Question for the PSP here. Said he was taken without incident. Was it safe to say that, I shouldn't say it's safe to say, but did it seem like he was expecting?
I wouldn't comment on what his present sense was. I would just comment that the professionalism of the CERT team and their tactical training definitely proved in a situation like this to do it in the most tactically sound and fastest way possible.
Was there anybody else in the house at the time?
Yes, parents were in the house at the time.
Did they say anything to you?
Again, present sense impression. I can't comment on that in ongoing investigation.
Given it was down the door.
Force was used. The warrants were issued for evening search warrants, which in Pennsylvania requires additional probable cause in order to serve them at the hours of darkness. I would defer to the first assistant to talk about the legal burden that you bear in order to obtain those. But from a tactical standpoint, based upon all of the briefings that we had developed and all of the intelligence we had developed, we thought that was the best time to serve it.
And what tipped off that Pennsylvania was involved with this?
We were alerted by the FBI. Troopers in the Bureau of Criminal Investigation were alerted.
Anything on like his social media pages that tipped anything?
I can't comment. I don't know.
So has parents been cooperative in this whole process?
Can't comment. Ongoing, like I said. The state police's role here was to serve the warrants and assist with the surveillance, which we've done. We've been part of major investigations. These are men and women who take an oath to protect their communities and the Commonwealth here. We're very humbled with the opportunity that we had, given a case that has really gained international attention, to play a small part in it. And our hat is off to Moscow PD, again, with the size and the complexity of this investigation and the work that they've done to get us here today. And this is only the beginning of the next step.
If it's determined that anyone here in Pennsylvania either helped to conceal or dispose of any evidence, then you would be a part of this case, or would it go to...
I would say that we would pledge whatever support we can for ongoing investigations with the Idaho authorities here in Pennsylvania. Absolutely. We would help them in any way we could.
Were there any weapons found in the home?
I don't want to get into what was actually seized in the house pursuant to the evidentiary nature of it.
Can you give any insight into why you all decided to go in overnight to make the arrest?
Those are tactical decisions in terms of base surveillance. I don't want to give out too many tactical factors that go into that situation, but obviously surveillance was conducted, and we wanted to go in at a time when we thought it would be the safest for everybody, safest for anybody else in the house, safest for Mr. Kohberger, and safest for our people.
There was an interesting question asked earlier about the care that needed to be taken to not tip the suspect off. Could you describe how long that lid had to be on things, and how many people were involved in it? Like, how many people knew and for how long?
So I would say, I would answer the question this way. I don't want to get into a timeline in terms of when we were notified by the FBI and when the surveillance began. Obviously, we know on Thursday night into Friday morning is when the warrants were served. I would say, as a credit to the professionals both standing behind me and others not here, many others not here, the information was held very close And we did not want to have any situation where Mr. Kohberger potentially would be tipped off. So as a result of that, I would say a close number of approximately 7 to 8 individuals, maybe 10 on the most within the PSP side of this operation knew about it.
And for days, can we say? Or?
I would say for a period of time. I would not feel comfortable commenting any more than that, for a period of time. And then as the tactical assets were brought in, people were briefed.
When the movement plan is finally decided, will there be an announcement? Will
Not from the state police, so we would defer to Moscow and the authorities in Idaho.
when he starts leaving Pennsylvania?
Well, we have security concerns now, obviously, to move any prisoner. Anytime you move somebody from a secure prison to another place, we don't want to. There won't be an announcement from the state police in terms of those logistics, but they're being worked on right now.
Can you give us your best guess when you think he might be moved, roughly? Tomorrow?
We would like to do it as soon as possible, but the court order says 10 days. We have 10 days to coordinate it.
Can you potentially be on a plane tonight? Is it possible he could be on a plane tonight? That's a possibility, right?
I can't. I would think that's probably not likely.
A private plane, or would you fly commercial?
We're looking into that right now.
Can you confirm or deny that a window was broken in order to gain access into the home?
There were multiple windows that were broken, I believe, to gain access, as well as multiple doors. I think the video of the house after the fact confirms that, and that would all be part of the tactical plan based on the floor plan of the house, etc., and what the CERT operators would do to serve those warrants.
Was this suspect on your radar before, and are you looking at any connections?
I wouldn't comment on that based on the ongoing nature.
But how about did he have a criminal past? According to the UJS, I didn't see anything.
I can't comment on a person's criminal history during an ongoing investigation.
Sorry, Mr. Mancuso said that you stand ready to assist in giving the complete background of the defendant. What specifically is law enforcement interested in?
That'll be the last question after Mr. Mancuso answers.
In any case of this nature, and I prosecuted a fair share of homicides, double homicides, that sort of thing, you want to look at any evidence of possible motive. You want to look at any evidence of a pattern, of modus operandi or method. You want to get into the subject's character, mental state to the best you can, that sort of thing. So it'll be an all-encompassing effort, which we stand ready for. Okay.
How will you do it?
We have our ways. Okay, thank you.
Thank
you. Thanks, everyone. Just for a quick spelling, I'll give everyone the spelling of everyone's name. It was included in the media advisory, but just so we have it. So, Colonel's last name is Ivanchik, Evanchick. First name is Robert. Major Paris, his last name is spelled just like the city, Paris. First name Christopher. And the first assistant district attorney's last name is spelled Mancusl. So, CERT, Special Emergency Response Team, is CERT. Thanks, everyone.
Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
Pennsylvania police discuss the arrest and the apprehension of Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger, who has waived his right, or waived for extradition. He will be transported to Idaho to answer to the first-degree murder charges within the next 10 days. Pennsylvania police saying there at the very end of the press conference that is unlikely to happen tonight. Hello there to you, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. Josh Benson is live on the air. What do we got? Yeah, 5 would think we're clear. Yeah, we're clear on 5. Just talking here, folks, about some of the feeds that are coming in. I believe that is going to be the final live feed that we have from Pennsylvania, but a lot to go over that we just learned. There was, of course, I think based on a majority of the subject matter and a majority of what we learned at this press conference was just how highly coordinated this effort was by the tactical teams that went in to arrest Bryan Kohberger without incident. Again, at his Pennsylvania residence after the drive back to Idaho from the drive back to Pennsylvania from Idaho with his dad. You heard them also answer questions as to whether or not he was pulled over with his dad in Indiana a couple of times, because Jason Labar, the chief public defender, indicated that to Fox News. Of course, that was asked during the press conference. But a majority of what we learned here over the course of this press conference was that this was a highly tactical and highly coordinated and professional effort to bring in Kohberger without any incident whatsoever. This is a tactical team that was used for high-risk situations. The arrangements are being made. They are looking at flight options to get Kohberger back to the state of Idaho. But perhaps the most interesting moment, at least to me, and I queued this up over the course of the press conference, the most interesting part of the press conference to me comes from Mike Mancuso of the district attorney's office when he talked about why exactly Kohberger would be, in his words, wanting to get back to Idaho to answer to the charges. Let's listen into that moment here.
It is a quirk, apparently. It's not in the norm of the states I'm familiar with that Idaho does not release their probable cause affidavit in support of their arrest warrant until after their defendant is returned to that state. But having read those documents and the sealed affidavits of probable cause, I definitely believe that one of the main reasons the defendant chose to waive extradition and hurry his return back to Idaho was the need to know what was in those documents. So that's a significant development.
Again, Mike Mancuso with the Monroe County District Attorney's Office saying that he wanted to, that he would imagine that Kohberger would want to hurry up to get back to Idaho to fully understand what is the probable cause against him, what is in that arrest affidavit, really what is the evidence that they have against him connected to this crime. So that was most of this press conference was very much focused on the tactical efforts that were used to apprehend Kohberger, but that was particularly interesting about the fact that this is sealed and sealed to even Kohberger, according to Mancuso. And so as far as knowing the evidence against him, that is something that is going to happen when the document is unsealed upon the conclusion of the extradition process. So a lot of questions that still exist, but Kohberger will not be extradited tonight, based, of course, on the degree of confidence that we just heard there from the colonel with the Pennsylvania State Police, that it's very highly unlikely that the effort gets coordinated tonight to get him back to the state of Idaho. Why is everybody so, of course, glued to when the extradition is going to take place? Because when the extradition takes place, those documents are unsealed and hopefully with minimal redactions so that the public and so that we can learn what the evidence is against him. Folks, we're going to stay here with you live a little bit longer on WFLA Now and talk with you here a little bit. Get to some of your questions and comments here in the WFLA Now Stream Center. If any new feeds pop up, they're right here on the screen over here. I'm able to monitor it. I don't think that they have voted for a new House Speaker just yet, have they? That's also on my feeds over here. That process currently ongoing in Washington, D.C., also on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. So we'll stay here with you in the Stream Center, and I'm going to answer questions. If it has hashtag KJB, of course, I can animate it on screen and talk with you guys and bring up and spotlight the comment. Josh Benson, if you're looking for Josh, he is on air right now. He's on the anchor desk on WFLA News Channel 8. So let's see what comments we've got coming in. So let's go to Rose's comment, hashtag KJB. I still don't understand why and how the two roommates got so lucky and the other four people in the home didn't. There's so many things that even with all the answers make no sense at all. You know, Rose, I think, you say that with all the answers, but really what answers do we have? We have such a scarce amount of information. So we have a answer, and a answer is, who do police believe is responsible for the crime? They believe that Bryan Kohberger is the person responsible for the crime, excuse me. But really, most of this story and really the motive and the connection still eludes us. Fox News has been doing a lot of interviews with the victims' families. And Steve Gonzalez, the father of Kaylee Gonzalez, said that their family is still looking for that connection. And there's been some inconsistent messaging when it comes to whether or not there was a connection of some kind between Kaylee and between Bryan Kohberger. The initial report that came out was that there was some kind of a connection, and now the fact that a connection doesn't exist, according to her father, that of course we're still trying to get to the bottom of that. And I think really too, based on what what Kaylee's family is saying, they too are still trying to get to the bottom of that as well. So let's go over some other comments. Thea, okay, I'm just gonna say Thea. Hashtag HeyJB. Does Idaho allow cameras in their courtrooms? We had a commenter earlier who was talking about that they did some homework and they looked up and they said that that it's up to the judge, but mostly Idaho does allow courtroom access. And I have not done that research yet. The policies per state are all very unique. Sometimes it can come down to the individual judge and the judge's determination as to whether or not they want to allow courtroom access. Sometimes it can come down to state by state. Sometimes it can come down to county by county. Some places it'll come down to courtroom or judge to judge. So when we get a more clearer idea of these hearings and when they're scheduled, the process will take shape as far as getting availability. If you've been with us here before on stream, you've probably heard me go on my soapbox and talk quite a bit about how I am all in favor of courtroom access. That given that so many of us connect to court cases now virtually, the idea that somebody can physically be in the courtroom, but that we can't witness what unfolds in a courtroom from a distance away, it makes very little sense to me. If somebody has a direct connection to a case and they want to be there among the general public, but physically or from a health standpoint they're unable to do so, shouldn't they be afforded the same opportunity to be in that courtroom as somebody who was physically able to do so? That's just one of the many scenarios and reasons as to why I believe that courtroom access for cases needs to catch up with the times. We, of course, have had some cases that gives us really just unprecedented levels of access and unprecedented levels of exposure. Look at what happened with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard last year, when you had the entire world focused on even the slightest eyebrow twitch from either Amber Heard or Johnny Depp. I am all in favor of courtroom access. If the hearing is open to the public, it should be open to the public and the public at large. That's just my 2 cents on it. And we'll find out more with Idaho. Ashley Myers, hashtag HeyJB, do you think it will be within 72 hours, but they are trying to protect him for transport? Look, number one priority is to do so safely without incident. It should be a smooth process. No surprises of any kind to get him from one state to the other. So of paramount importance is just the security and the safety of all those involved with this transport. And that's probably going to be the focal point either tonight or tomorrow when they start to have conversations about the process. Now, however, I'll just say this: I would be shocked if he's not there by the end of the week. I'd be shocked. They have 10 days, so they have till the 13th, the end of next week. But I'd be really surprised if the extradition wasn't done by the end of this week. I think Pennsylvania is ready to put this in the rearview mirror. They want to get this coordinated. They want to do it as quickly as possible. If they're looking at flight options, they want to look. It's going to be over in a matter of hours. A flight from Pennsylvania to Idaho. I mean, that would probably. It depends on whether or not they go commercial or whether they fly private. If it's commercial, I don't know if there's many direct flights from Eastern PA directly to Moscow, Idaho. However, if it's done commercially, it's probably the entirety of a day. If they arrange for direct transportation privately, that will be done in a matter of hours. The flight from Pennsylvania, Idaho is probably no more than 5 hours long. So it could be a relatively quick process, but they just have to figure out the logistics of getting him from one place to the other. But yeah, I'll admit, I would be very surprised if this wasn't done by the end of the week. Sister Moon, that's a very kind comment. I just want to say thank you. I see that. Thank you very much. Okay, so okay. Everyone's telling me to go check out Brian Enton's Twitter. Oh, wow. Just now got the body cam video from the traffic stop involving Kohberger and his dad while they were driving through Indiana. Going to play it back at 5 o'clock on News Nation. Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. So the body camera video from the traffic stop in Indiana, again, Jason Labar, the public defender, chief public defender from Monroe County, saying that Kohberger and his dad, they got pulled over twice in Indiana on the way back in mid-December from Idaho into PA. So now there was first Indiana State Police saying we have no record of it, which doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means that that an officer or a deputy or a trooper pulled over somebody and just didn't make a record of it, because how often does it happen where somebody gets pulled over and they're they're let off with a warning? That happens thousands of times a day. So very interesting that just like that, the body camera video is about to be released. As soon as we have it, we'll play it back. In fact, I'm just going to look right now. I might have access to it. Brian Enton and I, so Brian works at News Nation. I'm here at WFLA. We're under the same parent company. So Brian and I are very much allies when it comes to the news world that we live in. We work together because we work for the same company. And so we have access to the same assets. But looking here, it has not been uploaded to this, or is it? Or is this it? Oh, I think this is it. Give me a second, folks. I'm looking at this. Oh, yeah. All right. Interesting. Stand by, folks. I'm gonna show you a little bit of this. Wow. Folks, it would appear the video here has crashed my system. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.